Oh, no.
Boost Mobile is now sending experts nationwide to deliver and set up customers' new phones.
Wait, we're going on tour?
We're delivering and setting up customers' phones. It's not a tour.
Not with that attitude.
Introducing Store to Door. Switch and get a new device with expert setup and delivery.
Delivery available for select devices purchased at boostmobile.com.
This episode contains stories that include homophobia, sometimes within a family setting, and homophobic and transphobic language. This is
Queer Roots and Roots.
Stories of where we come from
And how we move in the world today.
We are a group of people living in London.
We're gay or queer, and we're mostly men.
And some non-binary people who were raised as men.
We're all either migrants to the UK and are racialised as being from an ethnic minority.
Ill. That's just a crappier way of saying global majority.
We all have different experiences and perspectives on the world. Some of us are racialized as black or brown.
Some as white.
Many of us have experienced racism and xenophobia.
Some of us are gay and some queer.
Some of us moved to the UK by ourselves.
And some are from an ancestral line that includes migrants.
We all,
every single one of us,
knows what it's like to be seen as other.
That is what brings us together.
We're part of a community project run by the Love Tank,
a not-for-profit community interest company that promotes health and well-being of underserved communities through education, capacity building, and research.
We wanted to make this podcast to tell our stories of crossing borders. Borders of nation-states, of gender and sexuality.
As a collective. We don't have a boss or a Beyonce, so every episode of Queer Roots and Roots has a different host and a different set of voices from our group.
Our promise to you is that our podcast is gorgeous, fierce, super gay,
and revolutionary.
I'm Asad. My pronouns are he, him. I'm Muslim, 6'2", huge. I speak English, Urdu and Punjabi. I'm a cis man. This sounds like a mismatched bio. But all in all, I'm pretty fucking hard to miss. So what's the narrative? Probably that I work hard. I like rugby. Not the sport per se, but the players. And I'm extremely heterosexual. I'm as straight as one of those bendy rulers you get in secondary school. Yeah, that's a bit of me. I'm hosting this episode and I've decided that my theme is flipping the narrative. One thing about me is I am super quirky and random. I'm so random. Sometimes I have long acrylic nails and that's because they make me feel so dainty and petite. In my head, I'm like a 5'2" white girl prancing around London with her Starbucks caramel macchiato, but in reality, I'm a 6-foot Asian version of Hagrid who's stumping around like a runway Balenciaga model. Someone recently reminded me of what I looked like when I was a teenager. When I was in my mid-teens, I used to wear a poncho all the time. Everything was black, grey or cream. Colours, I didn't know her. It didn't exist for me. I was always a bad bitch. I just didn't know it because I was brought up in a bubble confined to East London. So I grew up with 4 sisters, my mum and dad, a house full of really strong women. I was always around South Asian women's attire. I used to love wearing it. I'd find my mum's bras and get like nectarines out of the fruit bowl, and those would be my tits. My family always egged me on, and you know what? It was giving. I was fabulous, still am. But I guess when I was about 12 or 13, the vibe just instantly changed. And when I was doing me, dancing around, I'd hear, oh, he's enjoying it all a bit too much. And then not long after that, it was, you can't be doing this anymore. Boys don't dance like that. I'd always be hearing, ab ladke ho, ladke ye nahi karte, ab ladki nahi ho, you're not a girl, so stop it. The only words I knew that came close to describing who I was, They were really derogatory. They weren't even right. They didn't actually describe me. I knew I was different, feminine, let's say that. But all the words in my mother tongue, in Urdu, were derogatory. Words like kusra, which loosely translates to tranny, or I was called a batty boy or a batty man. I didn't even get faggot at home. I got it on the streets when I was going to college at 17, wearing my poncho, again, looking fierce as fuck. The world was giving me one narrative, and I was giving it another without realising it. For my episode of Queer Roots and Roots, I've picked some stories from other people who have flipped their narratives too. It starts with Amar.
I'm Amar. I'm 28. My pronouns are, well, I'm on the he, him, today, them pipeline, yet another victim of the transdemic. And a fun fact about me is when I was at university, I co-directed an a cappella Bollywood choir that performed at the Novello Theatre.
I want to know how Amar has done it, how they flipped the narrative that was given to them, learnt the language that boxes us in, and turned it all upside down. Tell me, Amar.
I want to talk about my faith in relation to my queerness, mainly because I think it's something that I still haven't quite figured out. When I was growing up, I was always in and out of the Gurdwara, the Sikh temple. I had Punjabi classes there. I ate there with my family several times a week. I would spend hours after school meditating, learning to read and write. Well, mainly to read the scripture as it was projected on projectors in the new, very modern, beautiful Gurdwara in the countryside where I grew up. As I got older and I started to experience very confused prepubescent desire, my faith was obviously where I turned to for some kind of clarity and some kind of sustenance. In many ways, this was beautiful and sustaining. But as I got older, it very quickly became the very typical and cliched trope of trying to pray the gay away. In Sikh, in scripture, it doesn't say anything explicit about queerness or about homosexuality, which is the terminology we were using maybe 15 years ago. And yet I knew culturally, intuitively, I knew that this was somehow wrong. I knew that these desires I was feeling must be a test. I remember growing up, maybe being 14, and being told by a young, charismatic preacher that if you have a friend who thinks they might be homosexual, treat them with compassion, tell them to pray and get married, and it will be fine. I think that as a moment sticks out to me because even age 14, I thought, that doesn't sound especially smart to me. Too many variables. I was also a student of Gurmat Sangeet, which means music from the mouth of the Guru. I was part of a group that learned traditional instruments that were on the verge of extinction about 20 years ago. I played the Dilruba and we sang hymns to the classical Hindustani rag structure. One day while practicing, I was thinking about the meaning of one of the hymns. Main bori mera ram patar, rach rach tako karo shingare. And in this hymn, the poet was taking on the persona of a bride who was adorning herself for her nuptial night. And this was a metaphor for his love for and devotion to the Guru and to God, to Waheguru. I think that was the first time that I realized that the scripture that I revered was actually poetry. This was a metaphor. I knew that the poet wasn't actually physically a bride. And there was something feminizing going on there. Once I unlocked that, I started to question a lot of the ways in which I've been taught to understand my faith and my relationship to God. It wasn't until a few years later, though, that this would develop into an imperfect queer misreading of scripture. I was maybe 17 or 18 when I was listening to another hymn by the great Qawwali master, Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan. I remembered listening to him on cassette tapes when we still lived in Hounslow with my parents. But I never really listened to the meaning of the hymn before. अवल अल्लाह नूर पाया कुदरत के सब बंदे एक नूर ते सब जग उपजिया कौन पले कौन मंदे. First Allah created the world, and from that all of humanity. From one light all of creation has sprung, so who can say who is good and who is bad? And the next line of the hymn use a metaphor of a potter. The potter has fashioned the vessel into various forms. There was nothing wrong with the clay. There was nothing wrong with the potter. That was the first time that I built on that initial understanding of the character in scripture potentially being feminized, to think about the fact that if the potter is fashioning the vessel in diverse ways, if Waheguru has made me like this, who am I to question that creation? Maybe actually the blemish that I was seeing was not my queerness, was not this desire. Maybe the real blemish was the idea that I had any right to critique it, to see it as flawed, to see it as wrong. And from that, I slowly began to realize who was anyone else within that community to tell me that it was wrong either. I still struggle with negotiating my faith. I go back to Gurdwara less often than I used to. I'm in Sikh spaces less than I used to be. And this isn't just about queerness. It's about other decisions that I've made and ways that I live my life that are quite evidently not consistent with scripture. But one thing that I've clung to is that I have a right imperfectly to participate in these spaces. My faith is a negotiation, as it is for the many heterosexual Sikhs who are also not perfect. One thing that I realized quite soon after getting heavily involved in the queer scene in London is that maybe it wasn't a binary choice between the white hedonism of Dalston Superstore and the backward, staid cultural trappings of Sikhi and of my Punjabi culture. That binary was constructed by whiteness. And slowly, I've been trying to find space within my community, within my faith, and within my scripture. That means that I don't have to let go of everything that makes me who I am in order to fit into a queerness filtered through the paradigm of whiteness.
I don't have to let go of who I am. This resonates with me hard because I'm Pakistani, I'm Muslim, I go to the mosque, I fast, I pray, and then I'm gay as fuck. There was a time in my life when I experienced the same as Amar, a binary choice between parts of who I am. I remember a teacher mentioning something about LGBTQ stuff in school, just words, and somebody complained to the school. It scared me. I was just confused. It was a war of words about who we are. More words now. I chose a story from Xing because he talks about buttholes and bussies. We love buttholes and bussies.
I'm Xing, I'm 31, and my pronouns are he, him. A fact about myself, so I love amazing spicy food, and I'm an amazing spicy food cooker as well. So I cook almost every day. My hometown food is very spicy, so that's what I love to eat.
He's small, tiny, he has no body hair just like me, and unlike me, he migrated to the UK. So his experiences are pretty different, especially with language.
I moved to the UK in 2014, so I speak both Mandarin and English. The beauty of language, I think, is really from what people, how people are using language and what people are speaking certain languages. So for me, I realized that my own language was very beautiful when I first came to the UK, because when I was back in China, I spoke Chinese every day, and then I didn't really appreciate my own language. After I moved here to the UK, because I don't have the chance to speak Mandarin Chinese anymore, and I'm forced to speak English almost to everyone in my daily life. So this makes me really miss my own language, miss my own people, and it makes me feel that I really should have appreciated my own language a little bit more. So that's when I started to realize my own language is actually very beautiful. It is also very beautiful because Chinese or Mandarin, we have a lot of expressions and words, phrases that we can't really translate them into English very easily, and we have a lot of ways to describe certain things using very visualized ways. So, for example, when we are talking about something that's probably a little bit inappropriate to say in the public, or sometimes we just don't want to say something in a very explicit way. So we would use different expressions or words to replace them. One very interesting thing about butthole or pussy. So in China, when you ask someone, oh, what would you call a butthole? Then most people would tell you that a butthole is a 菊花. So that means chrysanthemum. So you can say that when we describing a butthole as a flower, we treat it as something very beautiful. We think it's very delicate, and we think it's something that we really should look after as well. And this also leads me to think about the relationship between the two languages, between English and Chinese. So English has been the dominant language all over the world, and it has been influencing different cultures and different languages. So Chinese is no exception as well. In the English culture, there has been a very dominant queer culture as well, and this English queer culture has been influencing the Chinese queer culture as well. So we have a lot of words, phrases, expressions borrowed from English. So, for example, nowadays, if you ask someone if they are homosexual, if they are gay, then they would just tell you that they are gay using the exact English word rather than using any Chinese phrases or terms. But we actually have a Chinese indigenous term. So in the 80s or 70s, people created this term to refer to homosexuals or queer people in general. We used the 同志. So it translates as a comrade. So you can say that the term we used to refer to homosexuals or queer people was actually a very socialist one. And we have this unique struggle, we have this unique history, which are embedded in this identity term. So when we use it, we're trying to say something that's very liberal, that's very revolutionary. It's a very strong political word that we actually use. But unfortunately, because of the dominant English culture, more and more people are using those English identity terms. So we don't get to say those words as many as before now. Especially amongst the young generation, we don't really use those indigenous terms anymore. Personally, I think that's really a shame that we don't get to use those terms so often as before. Personally, I feel we should encourage people to say more those our indigenous identity terms. So that's why often I think myself as a 同志, so a comrade, rather than sometimes people would say a gay person, a gay man, or a queer person. Another example about how English has influenced the Chinese gender and the queer culture is something that I was really, really surprised by it. So in ancient China, and also, like in modern, probably a little bit earlier in modern China, we didn't really have a female third person pronoun. So we never had she, her before in our language. But then it was probably around 100 years ago when English was so dominant, and then some scholars had to translate English literature into Chinese, and then they realized that they had to invent the female third person pronouns to be able to translate the English she, her. So then they created those words, those characters, and then they brought these gender binary system, which was embedded in English language to Chinese language as well. So that was really something I was really surprised. And then I can't believe that how English had influenced Chinese gender culture in that way.
Dreaming of getting the all-new iPhone 17 Pro designed to be the most powerful iPhone ever?
Then stay in bed and let a Boost Mobile expert deliver and set it up for you.
Oh, actually, they will have to get up and open the door.
Oh, right.
Delivery available for select devices purchased at boostmobile.com. Terms apply.
It's so interesting how the language we use influences how we think about gender. The words I knew growing up were always derogatory: tranny, kusra, even the phrase "that's so gay," which I still hear a lot today. These things are always bad, but what does that tell us about who we are if we're queer? I've had to unlearn a lot. 3 years ago, my cousin blackmailed me to come out, so I told my mum and sister I was gay, and then they burst out crying. It was like somebody had told them I'd died, but now looking on, I guess that image they had of me was dying. This set me on a journey out of that house. I really did burst that fucking bubble, and I started doing what I'd already been trying to do. In that fucking poncho, making my own story. I slowly distanced myself from toxic parts of my family, and I met more and more people from the LGBTQ+ community. These conversations were uncomfortable because I didn't have the range, I didn't have the language. I remember meeting people whose pronouns are they, them, like Amar's. It's a challenge. I had to try and remember to use their correct pronouns, to see them not as a man or a woman, not as a binary option, but to see them for who they are as non-binary. Just like, for me, being gay and being Muslim, they're not binaries. These parts of my identity can coexist. Like, I just don't want to get involved. I just want to do me GC style. Do you know what I mean? I just want to be me. I want to hear from 2 more people now.
It's great to see you again.
Okay. Yeah, it's great to see you too.
This is why I hate people, you see, because
Sorry.
because last time I saw you, we were, at the same panel talking about language and, the politics of sexual language. So it's great to be in your company again. I'm Piero. My pronouns are he, him. I'm 47. And a fun fact about me is that people think I'm an extrovert, but I hate people.
I'm Sam, short for Samuel. Only my mom calls me Samuel, especially when I'm in trouble, but Sam. My pronouns are he, him. I am freshly 29 last Monday. And fun fact, I think the blanket is the most amazing thing to ever exist in the world because it's just like a hug, like the first time I touched one, I was in heaven basically. But when I'm at home, I have a blanket around somewhere, and when I'm outside, it's a hoodie.
Piero and Sam have a lot to say about language, like the ways it can be freeing and constraining. Kind of similar to things that Xing and Amar said, to be honest. I want to hear more about Piero and Sam's experiences with all of this.
Have you been?
I've been well, thank you. How have you been?
Yeah, not too bad. I'm really pleased to be here today and to have been invited, to talk about language again and the way that it affects us, specifically as, queer men.
Yeah.
And the different ways that we can sort of build our own lives around language or languages, as, in our case. I mean, I'm Italian. You are from Ghana, right?
Yeah, I am.
So
I
we
am.
both come from different backgrounds and, we speak different languages, but we have built ourselves and adapted to a new context, the UK in this case.
Yeah.
And so we have English in common as a lingua franca, but also as a, kind of like a way to communicate with other people. And do you find that this makes you behave differently, or, does this create a different persona when you relate to other men in particular or other people in general?
I could say yes, for the most part, because growing up in Ghana, we learned English in school. We did have our local dialects. So I speak Tree, which is one of the local dialects in Ghana, or Akan, as most people would know it. But we also learned English. When you're in school, you're a student. When you're home, you're a son or brother. It's something similar. So I think it's the same being in the UK, except this is not school. This is just life going on. And in terms of relating to other men, yes, I would say I'm quite different as compared to relating to men back home. Not just language, also the cultural difference as well. But yeah, English being the most dominant of languages, or one of the most dominant languages, yeah, you find yourself just learning new things that don't directly translate across to your other language or your home mother tongue. Yeah.
I think you said something really interesting when you were talking about the way that we are different to different things to different people. We're different people to different people. And so you're something to your family, and you speak to your family in a particular way. And to your friends, you speak in a different way. And to the people here, maybe in the UK, you speak in a different way. And that made me think about, how we construct also gender around situations. We adapt. We are at work, for example, the way that our work colleagues know us is different from how our friends, know us. And so this constant shifting personalities, identity, it's really tough, I think, especially then when you have to also at times police your own queerness if you're not comfortable with it, or anyway get on with it if you're very comfortable with it. So I think there's an added layer of complexity for queer people to try and find an identity which is not just who you are, but also how people perceive you, how you are seen as, in the way you speak, for example. Now people can't see me, but I'm gesticulating because, the Italian in me is coming out.
But it's also quite interesting, I think, because especially meeting other queer men from other countries, and then especially in the bedroom or in sexual encounters, you just find yourself learning new things. I think one of my most memorable ones was my first time hooking up with a Spanish man, and he just kept calling me cariño. And I remember someone saying that that man was in love with me because of how endearing that term is. But it stayed with me, it was quite interesting.
That's true. I mean, getting also the nuances of what an endearing term can mean in another language. And maybe you think, oh, they're going to marry me, when it's just something to sort of keep you, sweet. And I think we talked about this last time when we met, but the way that we also have sex changes when you have sex in a different country and you've lived in that country for a long time. And the way that you express yourself sexually, your sexual really personality. And I speak from experience when I have sex with maybe other Italians, and it makes a difference whether these Italians have lived here for a long time here in the UK, or whether they've come from the mother country. And so they are quote unquote proper Italians. But we could have another conversation about this, what it means, because I don't really, I feel Italian, but I haven't lived here for 20 years. I think I'm just a citizen of the world. So, whoever will want me can have me, whichever country in a way. But, I don't feel particularly rooted in any specific place. And I think that's the beauty of being a migrant, because you learn how to adapt, and you learn how to find yourself in a new environment, in a new country. But the sexual barrier is something that is always there. It's like when you travel and you have sex with someone, you don't speak the language, and but you communicate via your body, via other means, the language of love, so to speak.
Exactly.
Have you spoken the language of love?
The language of love, yes, I do speak it fluently. But touching on your
I'm
point,
not surprised.
touching on your point on the barriers to language, I think it just brings up how dominant the English language is and how we use it in most of our encounters or hookups or dealings with other queer men. Because I went to Ghana last year and I hooked up with a few local people. And it's not like I don't speak the language. I do speak the language and I'm quite verbal when having sex, but I just found myself lacking in the sense of like I just stuck to like moaning and stuff like that. So it wasn't, not that sex wasn't enjoyable, it's just you couldn't find those words in the local dialect to express what you want to express. And you don't want to come across as fake or sound like you're not having a good time. So when I went home, I thought about how, in my case, colonization played a huge factor in how certain languages lost their progress because English became the dominant language after colonization and things just kicked off from there. So you wonder if it didn't happen, would we have words in our local dialects to like express, say, horny, kinky, like fetish and stuff like that. And you realize you just find yourself borrowing words from English, you know.
Taking from other cultures, other languages has always been around. You know, the contamination, cultural contamination, and linguistic contamination is something that has been there since the beginning, you know, of time. You know, think about Latin and Greek. You know how they've sort of taken from each other, and now, you know, with the dominance of English as on the geopolitical, let's say, sphere, it's interesting to see how also the language of sex is being dominated by the English language. I work as a translator, and what I see is that sometimes finding equivalents for certain expressions or sexual practices can be difficult because we've imported them, especially in Italian, a language that is so open to foreign influx. Let's put it this way. So used to borrowing from English, from, you know, French even. And so out of sheer maybe laziness or just, you know, maybe other factors. And so it's interesting to see how certain practices are being spoken about, but maybe without really understanding what they're about or without making them more native in a way. Although then we need to also talk about why is there a need to make something native when you can borrow that from somewhere else, because it's a different concept, it's a different practice. But this poses, I think, interesting questions about the balance or the relationship between languages, you know, the dominant languages and minority languages or less dominant languages, which opens up, you know, a kind of worms in terms of globalization, the globalization of sex and the globalization of sexual, you know, sexual politics.
I think that's quite interesting because if you take words like top and bottom, it doesn't quite translate well in my language, for instance. So sometimes we just stick to like active or passive or or you just borrow the word top or bottom, you know, like it's just.
And are those words
weird.
filtered through the heterosexual experience?
To a
Or,
certain
you know, the
degree.
reproductive experience, sexually reproductive, rather than sex for pleasure.
Exactly, because like when a top, what should I say, is seen more as more masculine as the man, forgive me for this word, and the bottom is seen as the woman in quotes, you know. So it's again, it doesn't quite translate. When I went back home to Ghana, it's like, because it's illegal as it just stands now, and so I was scared to like even try and do anything. It was at the airport when I realized someone messaged me on Grindr, and I was like, oh shit, like I realized, oh wow, my Grindr is still on, and it had my picture there, and that was for the first few days it was okay, but then I think one of the guys I hooked up with, like, in as much as it's okay to see your face and everything, it's a bit safer if your face wasn't there. Because it's still illegal as it is, and also for the sake of like people setting you up or getting into trouble, just, you know.
When you say it's illegal, do you go to jail, or is there, I don't know, death penalty? Sorry, I'm not sure.
So
I know about
what
Ghana.
I learned was there is a possibility of being arrested, but it doesn't really go anywhere. It's more about the disgrace and the shame it brings to your family, because it's more about community over there.
Course.
And then children are called by their father's name. So like that's Mr. A's son, that's Mrs. B's daughter. You know, it's like that shame it brings onto the family. Facebook is still very much a very popular thing there. So like posts go online, people see you and it's just following you and your family. And yeah, I saw also some videos of people who've tried to like hook up, but then when and it's just a setup and they just got beaten up. And yeah, it's quite frustrating. But also I realized there's also a thriving community there where you just get to know people. Like once you're in, they realize you're one of them, teach you how to meet people, teach you where to meet people, how to address like certain scenarios, which places to go. Yeah. And we realized like we're making all of these up as we go. So again, we were told being queer is a sin, is wrong and stuff like that. And then as we've grown, we've come into our own and we're like, okay, this is who we are. We're not going to kill ourselves for it. We're not going to burn us. We're just going to be. Yeah, again, the language is used around there is just mostly borrowed.
Is there a word for gay?
There is a word for gay, but it's more of a demeaning term, like Trumudiful. This means like someone who likes. It doesn't even translate well in English.
Sodomite.
A sodomite. Yes. That I would say that. That's the closest it will bring it to like they just focus it on the act. Yeah. Like he likes fucking the butt. Like that's what it translates to. You know.
What about lesbians?
They don't talk about that actually.
There you go.
Yeah. A word like daddy, for instance, I would say in Tree, we don't have like the nuance of it. Like we don't have a direct word for that. But again, daddy is a word in English that has been repurposed to mean something else in the bedroom. So we have a word like eja, which in direct translation means father. But sometimes some people use in the bedroom as daddy as well.
Well, that makes sense because I think in most languages, you know, apart from the English, we're all repurposing, you know, the word for father in the bedroom. In Italy, I think it's the same, although, you know, we do say daddy, but we have our own sort of papi that you can use, which is similar to, I guess, Spanish. Although I think daddy has a kind of an aura about, you know, about, do you know what I mean? It's, you're a daddy, you know, come here, and obviously would say with an Italian accent, daddy, you know.
Okay.
But I was thinking also of the evolution of the word gay in Italian, which is now used more, you know, more commonly to refer to obviously gay people.
Right.
But because we also have dialects and so local regional terms to describe, you know, gay people and lesbians as well. You now hear either, you know, the very medical homosexual, so homosessuale,
medical,
which sounds always like, okay, welcome to, I don't know, 1834 or whenever, you know, it was introduced. And, or, you know, gay, or sometimes, you know, when, and this is especially from the, you know, alt-right or the, you know, right wing, the word frocio or froci, which is a very particular word translatable as faggot, basically, which is very offensive still. Hasn't, although, you know, I guess the community is trying to reclaim that, in the same way that the word queer has been reclaimed in English. But when it's used by one of your enemies, you know, it doesn't work, obviously. And so again, you know, we could talk about who can use words to talk about us. Also, technology is changing the way we are speaking because, you know, algorithms are sort of not taking over, but they have a very key role now in everything that we do. And so because there's censorship linked to the use of certain words, in an offensive way rather than in a, joking or whatever, then, you can't spell sex on social media. You have to spell it segs with two G's.
Yes, yeah.
So that's the beauty of being human, because you can always, fuck algorithms. Excuse my French.
The algorithms. You'd think that technology would make everything easier, but algorithms, tech, whatever it is, it can't really touch the experience of having a body. People are still so shy about that. And having sex. There is so much shame and stigma. In my work, I offer free sexual health screenings to everybody. And people don't like to say that they're gay or bisexual or lesbian or whatever initially. People really do shame themselves for having sex before marriage. And I see that a lot within ethnic minority groups. Whoever they are, I say to them, hey, everybody's having sex. You're here, you're sat on this chair to get tested, and you've made the best decision for yourself today. We're flipping the narrative. It's all about empowerment. Whatever background, whatever language, Amar, Xing, Piero, Sam, me, man, woman, non-binary babe, alien superstar, whoever. The words are ours for the choosing and for the using. Our stories are our stories to tell. I'm Asad Abdullah Zafar, and thank you for listening to my episode of Queer Roots and Roots. Stories of where we come from and how we move in the world today. Now more than ever, trans people are being vilified and stripped of their identities. One organisation I'd like to highlight is Trans Actual UK, who work to address and highlight issues affecting trans people whilst raising trans voices. You can find more information on the work Trans Actual UK do on transactual.org.uk. Trans lives matter, Black trans lives matter, and it's important to amplify trans voices now more than ever.
Queer Roots and Roots is produced for the Love Tank by Ontnil. Produced, edited, and engineered by Tash Walker and Adam Smith. Assistant producers, Saqib Afzal, Jose Carlos Mejia, Amardeep Singh Dillon, Chase Edwards, Stanley Ianu, and Rad Konichna. Music by E. Doi. Creative design and artwork by Richard Kahoji. Recorded at Pirate Studios in Dalston and Hackney Wick, East London. Executive producers Mark Thompson and Day Taylor Gentles.
Boost Mobile is now sending experts nationwide to deliver and set up customers' new phones.
Wait, we're going on tour?
We're delivering and setting up customers' phones. It's not a tour.
Not with that attitude.
Introducing Store to Door. Switch and get a new device with expert setup and delivery.
Delivery available for select devices purchased at boostmobile.com.